Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a general overview and installation guide for the Dynamic Range Trader Expert Advisor for MetaTrader 4. Finally, it's going to be immediately obvious that this is not your average trading bot. It's a professional distributed risk model algorithmic solution. It's more of a Swiss Army knife of smart money automated trading, basically taking some very good strategies and automating them. That's what we're doing here. Now, let's talk about what it is and what it is not. First, this is not some high-risk 2-pip scalping bot for GJ. It's a well-thought-out low-risk solution. Low-risk solution. Trades the entire market as a whole of market approach, right? Not just one pair with one strategy. They're actually, at the moment of filming this video, there are about 15 different strategies with infinite variations and combinations of those strategies. System operates more like a liquidity provision algorithm. You're going to learn some things about money management and positioning that you may not have been previously exposed to. All right, so I know this can look very complicated at first, and to some it looks like hieroglyphics when you're looking at all the different options. Well, how about that? Bot's closing out a basket right now while we're doing the installation video. Just took profit. Big W. It hit target. So that was unplanned, by the way. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk through the installation process. Just try to make this simple. This can be incredibly complex or incredibly simple depending on what you want to do with it. And we'll get to some of those advanced configurations and combination configurations in a separate video. We're actually going to do a video series for each trade type. But for now, we're going to walk through the installation process. We're just going to unzip the files in the directory, load the profile, just get it up and running, just a basic configuration up and running where it will take and close trades. Let's actually just do that right now. Alrighty, so here's what we're going to do. First, and this is a live account, by the way. First, let me close all these out. Let me close all these charts. I believe it's Control F4, and you don't need to do this. Let me just do a little bit of management here real quick. Let me close all of these charts. We'll start with the base. It does have some trades open, but you don't need to know that to install it. You don't need to worry about that. So we're just going to start with your base install. Say you just installed MetaTrader. It's going to look something that'll come up, something like this. You can close all the charts that are open. Here's what we're going to do. First, you obviously need to download the zip file. And when you get it, it'll be in a directory. What you're going to need to do in your MetaTrader is you go to File, the File menu up here, and say Open Data Folder. This is going to open MetaTrader in its data folder. It's not just a clever name. It's actually going to open it in the data folder. So you're going to be presented with this directory like this. You'll see the MQL4 directory and all these things, your templates and folders and all that, or whatever. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to open up a separate window here. We got to find the zip file that we downloaded, right? In downloads here, in my downloads folder, I've got the Dynamic Range Trader. We'll leave our data folder for MetaTrader open. So let's just go into the zip file here. You're going to open this, and there's going to have a Dynamic Range Trader folder. We're going to navigate into that folder. So what we want here is we're going to copy these files over from the zip file and overwrite some of the template files and things like that are already in your default directory. So what we're going to do is you can either drag and do this and right click and copy. You can Control A and then Control C to select all and then copy. We're going to copy these files and folders that are in the Dynamic Range Trader zip file, and we're going to come into our base directory here under your account serial number, and we're going to paste those in. And it should ask us whether or not we want to overwrite these files. We're going to say yes. We're going to replace the files. All we're putting in here are the only thing that's really going to be overwritten, or maybe a few templates and stuff. There's really not that many. We're going to say yes, overwrite the files. It's also going to drop your README file in here, and we'll go through that in a little bit. But that's kind of the point of the video here, is to actually show it being done. There are some installation steps in here. So what we've done is we've copied our files over. Let's just take a quick look at what those files are. In your MQL4 directory, you're going to have your experts folder, which is the expert advisor itself, your dynamic range trader.ex4. your files folder, and we're going to get into this. This is more of an advanced configuration where you have set files and configuration files, and you can load it is a configuration file, and you can load your own. The sound pool, don't worry about this right now. It's going to have some really cool sounds and some stuff that it alerts you to. I'll save that to be a surprise. So the people that have been in the group already know Prophetess Prime is coming to save you. Indicators. The indicators folder, obviously there's a strength meter. We'll go through some of this stuff too. Really what this is this is a custom tool that measures relative volatility, and that's used for a few of the trade types. Some of the ones we're going to focus on today, the main one by default, it has nothing to do with that, but there are some trade types that look at relative volatility and an index of currencies. It monitors the 8 major currencies and all 28 possible combinations of those 8 major currencies, and determines relative volatility by rate and direction on those, and determines what to trade. And we'll talk about some of that. There are 3 problems that you need to solve in trading. First, you have to know what instrument do I trade. Second, you need to know what strategy do I deploy on that instrument. And third, you need to know how much risk do I place on that strategy. So there are 3 problems that need to be solved, and we're going to solve those 3 problems. This helps you solve the first one of what do I trade. We'll get into that later. People in the group understand this. Then you have your, this is the range tool. This isn't used by the bot. It's just in there by default. The supply and demand tool is used by the bot to trade supply and demand. Yes, this trades automated supply and demand. We're going to get into each individual trade type, but this fully automates supply and demand. And it's very cool and it's very profitable. Next, going back to our profiles. Now we have our default profile. This just sets up, it just loads the charts basically. You'll have a bunch of charts open depending on your account size and how much risk you want to take. There'll be, 28 charts open plus a master config. So because it's looking at 28 possible combinations of the 8 major currencies. It trades the entire market as a whole and not just one instrument by itself. It doesn't just trade one pair. This is a very different type of system. This trades the entire market, and it looks at different pairs depending on what's happening, depending on what's moving in what direction. It's a very different type of system than you're used to. And you have your bot config. This is more of an advanced user for the configuration files that we were saying, an advanced user configuration. Templates. This is just the bot template that sets it up and loads the files on there. You don't really need to know what all this stuff is. And then just a couple little things that are put in there just because. For manual discretionary trading. But for the most part, there's really not much to it. It's really just the expert advisor itself and then some supporting libraries, basically. One supporting library for supply and demand really is what it is. So now that we've unzipped our files and we've copied them over and made a mountain out of that molehill, let's go back. Basically what you need to do now that you've done that, you've opened your data folder and you've copied the files in. One easy way to do that is just close down MetaTrader. I've got another one open here. I'm running multiple versions of this on my server. So we've closed down MetaTrader. We're going to open it back up. This is our 10K live account. We'll open MetaTrader back up. You don't have to close it down. It's just probably a good idea to do so. We'll copy the files over, reload it. Why not? It's going to load by default this bot config. So it's loading everything. Give it a second. And another thing that you can do is you can go to your file menu and go to profiles and load the profile. May take a second. It is loading. This is on a VPS and it's loading 28 charts open too. That's another thing. If you have a slower computer, you don't have to load all of these charts on here. We're just going through a default configuration, and then you can remove certain pairs if you don't want it to trade certain pairs. That's fine. We'll get to all that. All right, so here we go. Finally open. All right, so we'll start with this. I have a base like a master chart here on Eurodollar. We'll get into how all this works in another video, but right now we're just looking at installing it and getting it in. It's more about the installation process and just what it is, just a general overview. So this is your relative volatility tool. You don't need this for trading. The bot is looking at this data and it's measuring rate and distance, looking at all 28 combinations of your 8 major currencies, and it determines what's moving in a sustained direction on multiple time frames. You have multiple time frame confluence here, and it's looking at multiple time frames to determine which currencies as an index. These are custom indexes. Indices would be the plural form technically of each of the 8 major currencies, and it looks and tries to determine which direction are these currencies as a whole moving, and get some information from that. You don't need this for all of the trade types, but there are a few directional momentum and directional levels. It needs this. You don't need this for everything. So basically what you got here is it opened up a bunch of charts. A whole bunch of things are open, and it should be 28 different pairs, the 28 combinations of the 8 major currencies. And for each chart that's open, it has the dynamic range trader already loaded. You got your little smiley face up here because auto trading is on. By default, it should be off actually. But this is a live account. I do trade this every day with the bot, only the bot actually. So you're going to need to turn this on. Make sure that you have auto trading turned on or it won't take a trade, right? So we're going to turn that on. And at that point, it should be live. It should be able to take a trade. So let's go through just a quick overview of what's going on here with the trade types. Press F7 on the chart that's loaded. This will load your, and you don't have to do this, but it's something you're going to want to familiarize yourself with, obviously. Press F7 and it'll load up your options for the bot. For the EA itself, for the expert advisor, it'll load up the options. There is a lot of stuff in here. There's a reason that there's a lot of stuff in there, and there's going to be more stuff in there. There's going to be, I'm constantly adding to this, and I actually have multiple trade types that are planned very soon over the next week or two to be added to this. And that's why we're going to split this video into multiple pieces. This is really just a general overview, and more importantly, just how to install it. And we just went through that. There's really not much to it. Just unzip some files, put them in there, and just make sure that it's, you know, it's in the right place. Restart it, and it'll come up and work. So what we have here is a bunch of trade types. We got our supply and demand, automated, directional momentum, directional levels, range breaks, center rejections, stacked positions, stacked reversals, hash reversals, ADR reversals, buy the freaking dip, sell the freaking rip, open reversion. This is the one that we're going to start with. Very profitable trade type, very simple. This is a mean reversion trade type. It's a mean reversion strategy that's automated in a dynamic grid type of system. So open reversion, we're going to start with signal reversion. We'll get into what each one is in a different video, but range expansion, obviously, kind of makes sense what that is. This is another very, very good one. This is where you enable the trade types that you want it to trade. These are multiple different types of strategies, and you can enable as many or as few as you want. I don't recommend enabling them all. This is meant to trade certain strategies in combination with each other to have that synergy, where maybe you want to trade a trending strategy and a range strategy at the same time, because you may be in a choppy market and you think that maybe you might be coming out of a choppy market and going into a trend soon. Maybe you want to trade both of those strategies to catch both scenarios. You can do that with this. They're infinitely configurable, and we'll get into again at another video. Configuration section. This is really what you want to pay attention to. Right now, don't worry about the times. This is used for a specific trade type, to measure a time range, a time block range after the daily open after the daily close and before London open. Different scenario there. We'll get into that. Not all trade types use that. Only 2, I believe, use that. sounds obviously is coming. There's a reason. The people in the group that know what's coming there will understand that. So static lot size for today's demo, don't worry about this. This is basically set your lot size for certain types of trades. Basically, don't worry about this right now. We're gonna individually configure our lot size in the options for open reversion that's set by default here. We're only gonna allow one type of trade right now, one strategy to run, and it's called open reversion. It's a mean reversion strategy. We'll get into that in 1 second. Obviously, you can set your maximum lot size if you're trading more than 50 lots at a time. You're more than welcome to bump that up. This is more of a protection. Should never need it anyway. Maximum spread in points. This will restrict it from trading stupid spreads. Sometimes during certain times of the day, especially at rebalancing after the close, all the spreads go wild and you'll see a 20 pip spread on something. This will stop it from doing that. 50 points is technically 5 pips. So this will only take the trade if it's inside of that maximum filter. Very useful. This just stops it from trading in high volatility, where you want to trade in high volatility actually, and that's a whole nother story. This bot actually does very, very well in highly volatile, massive whipsaws. This is going to kill it. Actually does very well, especially this trade type. Open reversion does very well in a choppy whipsaw market. It's the opposite of what you would think. It does very well in a choppy, messy market. Way better than a human's going to do. But when the spread goes high, this will stop it from trading that. Dynamic lot scaling, we'll get into that. This automatically scales your lots for you depending on where your account balance is. So as your account grows, it scales your lots up dynamically, automatically for you. As your account goes down, which hopefully it never will, it will scale it down, up and down dynamically. I don't need it for now. That's in another video. Your opening range filter, you don't need to worry about that right now. Only manage EA positions. This is something that you may want if you trade a hybrid strategy like I tend to do, where you trade both algorithmically and discretionary trades. Say you're allowing the bot to take positions and it's got a big basket on, but you also want to take a manual position at the low of the day or the low of the week or something, but you don't want to close that trade because it's a very good position. You can set this to true and it will only close out the trades that were taken by the bot itself, and it won't touch your manual trades in case you want to leave them on. When it comes to profit targets, and perfect segue into profit targets, your equity step. This is a percentage that steps up your equity. When your equity gains a certain percentage, like say 0.1%, say the bot takes a bunch of trades and you want it to close when your net account equity in open exposure reaches 0.1%. This is in percentage. Like if you wanted to close out at 2%, you'd put 2 here, and it will trade until it gets 2% in open exposure and close out. There's a reason it's low like this. This type of trade is very good. This strategy is very good at taking small percentages out of the market multiple times per day. You want to do 0.15 to 10 times today. You're doing pretty well with very, very low risk. Profit goal and open exposure measured in currency. So what this does is, this is very simple to understand. When your open exposure, whatever your open trades are, get to a certain dollar amount, and whatever your base currency is, like say it's I want to close when I hit $100. When all of my open trades hit $100, to just close everything, because that's my target in currency. That's exactly what that does. Very simple. The same thing with your loss limit. Say I'm only willing to lose $500. Hopefully that never happens. But if your loss limit is $500, it will close out when your negative exposure, your open exposure, goes in the negative by $500. Very simple to understand that. Percentage of balance. Your profit goal, same thing. Instead of currency, it's done as a percent of your balance. So say I want to say when my total trades, it takes a bunch of trades and I want to close when it gets to 0.5%. When I reach 0.5% profit, I want all trades to close. That's what this does. Same thing with your loss limit. It's very similar to equity step, but used a little differently, and we'll have to go over those differences in another video. It depends on your strategy. Profit goal per position in currency. So this per trade is what this is. It looks at all of your total trades, regardless of what type of trade it is, what strategy it is. And if any trade is in profit by X amount, we'll say $5. You say when any trade goes into profit by $5, it'll automatically close it. This is your money management configuration. This is your money manager, is what this is. At this section, this is really to just manage the trades and close them when they hit certain types of targets. And there can be multiple types of targets, and they can be stacked with other types of things. We'll get into layered configurations at a later video. Profit goal per symbol. Obviously, well, first with the positions, you can do either currency or percentage of your balance. Same thing. When any one individual trade per position, when any individual trade goes into, say, 2% profit, not in dollars, but percentage, or say I want to close at 0.25%. I want to close 1/4%. Every 1/4%, I want you to close and then reposition. You can do that. There. That's what this is for. Your profit goal per symbol. So this is per chart or per pair. Say you have 3 different strategies running on pound dollar. And regardless of strategy, when your total balance for that pair, and not for everything, not your net account, but for that pair, gets into profit by a certain amount of dollars. Say if my total pound dollar profit gets to $15, and even if it's running 3 different strategies, this will close that out. See, this is mostly a money management thing here. Per symbol, percentage of balance, it's the same thing. It's the same logic, but per pair. Per symbol is per pair, basically. Like euro dollar or pound Swiss would be the symbol in programming terms. So whenever you get to it, whenever it gets to, say, I want to say every 0.05%, 1/20th of 1%, I want to close whatever chart that it's running on. You can do that there. Next, disable trading when goal is reached. This can be useful, especially if you need to be flat on a Friday. And the reason I put this in is one of the firms I trade with, you need to be flat on Fridays for that account. This is very useful. Obviously, when you hit your first profit goal on a Friday, it'll shut itself off. This shuts itself down and stops trading when you reach your goal. Very useful feature for certain scenarios. Sometimes you may not want to do that, but there are certain times you will, mostly when you want to get flat on the weekend. Smart Chase drawdown. Huge feature here, the Smart Chase algorithm. We're going to go into these specific algorithms. This is a collection of multiple algorithms that all perform certain tasks. What this does is this chases your drawdown back to 0 using a type of money management algorithm when you reach a certain threshold, your Smart Chase threshold. Like say you go into a drawdown by 1%. Say all of your trades go negative by 1%. Instead of closing profits, what this will do is it'll start squaring up negative positions with positive positions. So say you have, without going into the technical details of how this works, say you have a position that's negative $31 and you have a position that's positive, $32. It will square those up automatically and reduce exposure. The point is to automatically unwind your position. Instead of trying to take profit on that trade and close that $31 position, it squares it up with an inversely correlated, really an opposing position. And it's very difficult to explain what you need to know for that. The important thing is that it's very useful in some scenarios. For certain types of combination strategies, this is something that's very useful. We'll get into that in another video. These are more advanced features, just kind of explaining what these things are in the config section. Smart Chase, the threshold, obviously that's your threshold. Say 1%, or say, if it goes in drawdown by 5%, should never go that deep with this type of system. This is a low risk system. If you want to run it high risk, you can, but you don't have to. Say you go into a drawdown by 5%, whatever number you put in there, it will stop looking to take profit, and it will start squaring your positions up with the intent to reduce exposure. It will reduce your drawdown by reducing your exposure to the market, and then can reposition on more favorable positions and still have the free account margin to do so. This frees up account margin is what this does. Very, very powerful thing. Advanced type of algorithm that's not going to be in most type of trading bots. Smart scale with equity. Obviously, this will scale up your lots based on your equity, and you can have a percentage multiplier that it does that by. This can really ramp up an account very quickly. It can also ramp up the amount of risk. So you got to be careful with this. This is more for advanced users with larger account balances. If you really want to scale up your profits and very quickly, you can do this, but it also scales your risk proportionately. Remember, when we're trading, your risk is always proportional to your reward. So if you want more reward, you got to take more risk. And if you're willing to take a little more risk, you can use something like this to seriously scale it up very quickly. You can really grow a small account very quickly with this, but you take a lot of risk doing so. I don't recommend doing that for small accounts. It's more for a large account. Just a warning. Then we get into individual trade types, supply and demand. Obviously, everybody understands what that is. Very cool. This automates multi-time frame layered supply and demand. This is a very, very interesting solution here. This is a multi-time frame layered supply and demand automation. We'll get into what all of those settings do at a different time. Open reversion. This is what we're talking about here. This is our default trade type. Without going into the technical details again of what this does, because you don't really need to know that for this video. This basically, it sells the highs and buys the lows of what would statistically be your highs and lows of your weekly candle, split into a dynamic grid. And it's hard to explain exactly. That's a bunch of programmer gobbledygook for it. Sells high and buys low. It's a mean reversion trade type, and you can configure options in here. Now, here's the important thing: your lot size. This is individually controlled under its trade type. Each trade type has its own section in the configuration. That's the important thing to understand. For different trade types, you will configure them individually. There are different options on money management and closing things, how spaced out you want your grid step to be. Trailing stops, when to start trailing, how far to trail by, whether or not you want progressive lots. It can automatically increment your lot size as it buys down or sells up, depending on what you're doing. Options for all of that. It's very, very flexible, very powerful as far as the configuration goes. Different grid expansion settings. You can invert the strategy where instead of selling on the way up, it buys on the way up. Useful for trending markets. Smart hedge, we'll get into that. It's another type of algorithm that automatically hedges your position and steps your account up. It steps your open exposure up and locks in profits. The point of this is to lock in profits. Like say you have a position that goes into profit by $1 or whatever. It's done in percentages, but for simplicity's sake, we'll just say it goes into profit by $1. You can have it automatically lock in that $1. It will automatically hedge your position and lock in that $1 as positive equity in open exposure. It leaves it open and doesn't close it. And there are reasons why sometimes you may not want to necessarily close your positive equity. You can lock that in place and use that as a protection against another strategy or another trade that is possibly in a drawdown. There are very good reasons why you may want to hedge your positions in place with positive equity and capture profits. That's kind of what that does. Long story, it's complicated. We'll get into it in another video. Smart Capture Equity, different type of algorithm. This, again, this is one of the bigger features in this type of system. This locks in profits. The point of this is to use this strategy not necessarily to close and gain profits, not necessarily to close trades, but to use it to capture equity instead. And there are, again, reasons why you would want to do that. Some reasons why you might want to capture equity instead of closing the trade, and you want it to gain positive equity. Say you have a trade that is manipulated into profit by $200. Instead of closing that $200, you can leave that $200 open as open exposure, and it locks it into place. It's a different way of doing it. Again, so you can protect, you can have a buffer zone. Say you let the bot grind up $100 in profit. Now you have $100 that you can take a swing for a home run with a manual trade. Say you want to take a discretionary manual trade and you want to take a big scalp on something. Well, now you have an extra $100 that you can take on a drawdown because the bot ground it up and left it open as open exposure. There are reasons why you may want to do that sometimes, depending on what your goal is. So just a quick rundown there of the open reversion. We're going to, again, there'll be a whole video on how to do this. There are many different ways that you can look at this and how you can configure this. That's kind of the cool part about this thing is it's like a Swiss Army knife. There are many ways that it can be configured, but it doesn't have to be complicated. It's not as complicated as it looks. And just if you want to get it started and running, the open reversion with default settings, just trade little micro lots to get started until you figure out how this all works, really. Figure out what you're doing, and then make sure you know what you're doing with this first and you understand it before you really start taking any more lot size or any more risk. The whole point of this system is to trade low risk. We want to trade low risk, not high risk. And there's so many high risk trading like scalping bots out there that you know, they'll just blow your account up. I mean, if you want to blow your account up, go do that. If you want to still be doing this 10 years from now, you know, do something like this. Trade low risk. What we do is low risk here. I teach how to not blow your account up, and what this type of algorithmic system is. This is consistent profits. You're not going to get Lambos today, but you'll have 20 Lambos tomorrow. It's not Lambos today, but 20 Lambos 2 years from now. That's what this is. You want to take high risk 100 lot scalps for 2 pips? Be my guest. That's not what this is. That's not what we do here. We trade professionally here. We're not gamblers. We're skilled traders. We're advantage players in this market. We're not gambling. This is, you know, to use a gambling reference, to say we are gamblers, we're Texas Hold'em players, and we're not spinning the wheel and putting it all on black on roulette. We're skilled advantage players. We're counting cards in blackjack versus putting it all on black on the roulette wheel. Very different. We're advantage players here. We're consistent traders. We're traders, not gamblers. So moving on, signal reversion. This takes entries based on certain signals. There are many different, again, we'll go through all this. I don't normally use this. This is the only thing in the bot that actually uses indicators. And this was more of a feature request from other users. Say you want to take a position when the 50 period moving average crosses over the 200 period. I don't use things like that. But if you wanted to do that, why not? You can do that. And this will manage the money for you if you have something like that, some type of strategy. This will find peaks and valleys in the data. You can candlestick patterns. This is what this is really used for. This recognizes multiple types of candlestick patterns and can take entries based on that. It's just a certain type. This type of trade takes an entry when a signal is found, a signal of some type, whether it's a candlestick pattern, a moving average, RSI, whatever. There's going to be a whole bunch of things in here. I'm going to add to this. There's a whole bunch of things. You can program your own entry signals in here. It's going to be very cool. It's just not something that I use a lot, but it can be configured to be useful, especially trending strategies. Like if you want to just take just a basic trending strategy to cover when the market is trending, like say you're running a mean reversion strategy that's not going to perform very well in a trending market, something like that will cover it. And we'll get into all that. Combinations, it can be used in combination with other things to be powerful. Range expansion, this is a cool one. This trades range expansions. It will find when something has expanded its range. It identifies the range, finds when it has expanded, and starts taking mean reversion trades back into profit. It's very configurable. We'll get into all that in another video. Momentum, this is one that uses the strength tool that we went through. Your directional momentum. It basically trades in line with the market in momentum by looking at indexes of currencies. Relative volatility. This is about relative volatility, how one currency index is moving relative to the other by rate and direction. Rate and direction, it measures and identifies. Next, directional levels, same kind of thing, different strategy. We'll get into that. It trades a dynamic range and also uses that directional data. Range breaks, we'll get into that. It's an algorithmic range, not a price action range. Just going through the different trade types, and we're not going to go into how they're all used yet. Be a separate video for each one of these. Stacks. This basically stacks up positions in momentum with the market. Reversals, same thing, but opposite. Reversals, this is a configurable reversal strategy. Like say I want to put this, I want this to be one ATR, one average daily range, up or down from the market. I want you to take a reversal strategy, and you can configure where that happens. Very useful in some scenarios, especially in combination with other things. Hash mark reversals, we'll get into that. This is a G13 classified, what the hash mark is. ADR reversals, same thing as a daily range reversal. This basically takes, every time this hits your potential daily range for the day, it takes a reversal. Very useful. Extreme reversals, this is when price exceeds your weekly projected low or high, as well as your daily projected low or high at the same time. Very useful thing here. Centers, we'll get into that, what a center rejection is. Not necessary for this video. Again, and this magic number is not something you generally have to worry about. These are just numbers that individually identify your trade types. All right, so that's basically a general rundown of what this really is, just a general overview of what it is and how it's used, and really how to install it. That's kind of the point of the video. Went a little long here, but we're going to need to go through all this stuff anyway. We'll just cram it into one video. Why not? Up front, just to install and just kind of a general overview of what it is. Again, the important things, the cliff notes here, the important thing to understand for this video: unzip the files, put it in the directory, restart your MetaTrader, turn on auto trading. You should be good to go with default settings. What you don't want to do is start messing with the lot size and jacking the risk all the way up. This is designed to trade very small positions. Start out with the micro lots, no matter what your account size. Get used to the feel of how this goes. It's designed, this type of system, a distributed risk model, is designed to trade many instruments with smaller lot sizes. It takes many positions to build in a net basket, a net position. It trades multiple things, multiple pairs. It trades the entire market. It'll trade all 28 combinations. You know, you might be in trade, multiple trades on all 28 pairs. Depending on how you have this configured and how many charts you're running it on. What I would suggest that you do probably up front actually is to just run it on 3 or 4 charts. Pick 3 or 4 of your favorite pairs and run this on those 3 or 4 pairs and see how it performs. See what it does. Get a feel on where that balance is for your account size. we're going to go into specific configurations for certain types of account balances, whether it's a $100 balance, a $1,000 balance, $10,000 balance, a $100,000 balance. What your balance is opens up different possibilities for configuration combinations. And that's where we'll get into some of the advanced uses. And that's really where this thing shines. But it can trade any account balance. The point of this is to trade low risk and not blow your account up. That's what this does. Again, if you want to trade high risk, that's the channel next door. That's one door down. We're the low risk channel here. So anyway, hope you guys got something out of this. It's really just about how to install it. Unzip the files, copy them, turn your auto trading on. If you have a lower account balance, try to run fewer charts. Start with 3 or 5 pairs and not all 28. Start with the demo. Start with the demo first. Get a feel for what the settings do, how to turn things on and off. And as you start to learn more about this, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at what you just got. So the gift that you just received. Anyway, hope you guys have a good one. Next video.